So, welcome to the Ripples of Change, helping leaders cultivate presence for meaningful change. As change agents, our impact depends on how we show up, the self-awareness we cultivate, the presence we bring to groups, and the ways we influence others all shape the change we hope to see. In this podcast, we talk with guests about what it means to use ourselves as instruments of change and how their work heals, repairs, or makes whole what's broken in hearts, relationships, and systems. I'm Abby Yano, your host. As an executive and leadership coach and organizational consultant, I've spent years honing my ability to lead with awareness and purpose, and I'm excited to explore these ideas with my guest, Eric Hicks. Eric is an executive leadership and team coach and author of Accelerating Leadership: How to Integrate Executive Coaching in Your Organization. And he doesn't just teach leadership. He finds leadership lessons in nature, in cattle that disregard fences, sled dogs who know how to lead a team, and in what we can learn from the long exposure photo of the Northern Lights. So welcome, Eric.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate the introduction. So grateful to be with you, Abby. Also, just thank you so much for these podcasts and the great questions you're asking. It's so important that we have these discussions. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet. Yeah. Well, I'm enjoying doing these. I just love the conversations with people like yourself.
Well,
So I'm going to cue this up for us, Eric. You've been an executive coach for a long time, and you write beautifully about examples about what nature can teach us about leadership. Can you talk about what is the deeper contribution you feel called to make through your coaching, Eric?
it's such a great question, and one as a coach I ask myself all the time to make sure
Mm,
I am making a deeper contribution. The first thing that comes to mind is that I believe I help people identify patterns of leadership behavior, and then simply ask the question, is that what you want to be doing? And is the outcome what you desire? And in so doing, I think, and you and I talked before a little bit about this, that as a coach, we are able to ask questions that no one else will ask our clients. No one else either has interests, thinks highly of them and doesn't want to offend if they think that's offending, or they just don't want to get into it. And so we can ask in a very non-judgmental way, how do you like the way you're showing up? And is this pattern something you desire? And is there a better thing you could be doing?
I love that, Eric. I love the looking for patterns, which we try to do, I think, both in coaching and consulting with people to get people to see the patterns in their organizations, on their teams, and the change that they're trying to make. And then this thing about this idea of congruence. Is what you're doing gonna, like, what is it that you want to achieve? And is what you're doing heading in that direction, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. I find sometimes leaders don't know how contagious their behavior is, and so they believe that what they're doing will get them a certain outcome based on maybe what they've seen before or what they've done, and nobody's ever given them much feedback. But the outcome that they're getting may not be exactly what they want. And so, in helping them see, is it congruent with the outcome,
Right.
or is it taking you away from that? And sometimes they're invisible patterns; they don't see it all. So, as a coach, I think my role is to help them see invisible patterns, and then to pose the question.
I love that. I often talk about helping leaders see the invisible systemic dynamics that impact people's ability to achieve their desired outcomes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like the dynamic word you just said, because often people will key on what their leaders do. I was coaching someone just this morning, really early this morning, my time. They were in Hong Kong, and we were talking about how they wanted to present, and they were working through some issues of fear and trying to communicate the right message. And we got into the point of, well, how are you presenting, and how do you want to come across? And the first thing that she said was, well, my boss does it this way. He's an expat, he's very articulate, he speaks very rapidly. The woman I'm teaching is Chinese, and I want to be like him. And so the question then came up, what is the payoff for being like him? What is your outcome you're trying to receive? And
Right.
then, is that what you really want? could it be even more effective if you were more genuine to be yourself?
Yes. And I might add that if her boss speaks very quickly, is that helping him achieve what he's trying to get to?
But very precisely, exactly. I thought this, I didn't say it, but I'm thinking, is her boss trying to sort of clone himself in a way that's not helpful to those who report to him, especially from a different culture, different language? There may be dynamics there, the dynamic word that we're not addressing with him.
Yeah, interesting. So as you're doing this, you're helping people identify patterns, you're helping them get to understand their congruence between what they're trying to achieve and what they're actually doing. Can you tell me through this coaching that you're doing, what is your vision for the world you're trying to create, Eric?
That's really it's really a great question. Um, I would say that it's to help leaders identify the truth. What's really true about a basis of how they're acting, and how are they aware of it? And is there clarity in the way they communicate truth? Most of the time, individuals, leaders come to me and they want to improve. They want to go to what they call the next level, right? Their potential. And they all have a story. They all have a story. And usually the story is not the story. It's somewhere in there they have made an assumption that something is true and they base their behavior on that. And so to answer your question, I really think how I'm helping to change is helping leaders see that perhaps what they're basing their actions on, of the truth that they believe in, may not be true. And they may have been carrying this script for a long time. And if we examined it, could we get them to an even higher level of X, whatever that is, awareness, love, outcome, behavior, by really examining whether their assumption is true or not.
Hmm, there's a lot in that.
There's a lot of yes, there is.
Um, so here's where it takes me, Eric. Uh, what is truth? What do we mean when we say, you know, what what do they think, what is truth for them? There was a piece you included at the end about assumptions, what they're assuming to be true, and sort of what is the what is the nature of the reality that we're asking them to be aware of? Can you speak to that?
I think Abby, this goes to the false assumptions that they make and what they think is reality, and what I try to do is help them ask the question. I always try to in a non-judgmental kind of way ask the question versus sort of say this is not true. But most of the time it's based on fear or it's based on a feeling of less than. Somehow,
Mm,
if I do something different, something bad will happen. And if I do something different, I will be less than someone else. So I need to be like them or be more than them, or I need to stroke my ego in a certain way so I feel like I can associate with them. And if we kind of drill down and ask, okay, what is, if you make a change in the way you think about things here, your mindset, what's really the worst thing that could happen here? And is it true that people will think of you as less than? Many times as coaches, and this is something I really had to work on as a young coach, I think it's still a struggle sometimes because you meet thousands of people, you coach them, and you can see immediately the pattern they're in. And you want to jump in there and say, well, do it this way. And that doesn't work. They need to be able to identify the behavior, the price they're paying, and the cost of doing that behavior themselves. And if they don't, then it's just me telling them some advice and they move on. But often, back to the point you were asking about, our mindset, our beliefs are based on our experiences. And so experiences create beliefs, beliefs create behavior, and behavior then creates an outcome. If we as a coach, or if I as a coach, just go in and try to change the behavior and say, Abby, you should do it this way, or Abby, you should do it that way, without changing your mindset, you might do that in compliance for a little bit, but chances are your mindset and your belief hasn't changed. So what we need to do is change the experience or the interpretation of the experience to change your mindset to say, I wonder if people are really quiet in the meeting because they're thinking about me as opposed to thinking I made a dumb statement, therefore I'm not going to say anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I try to do with clients is have them think about experiences they've had that justify their belief. And if they give me that, I say, well, is there another interpretation of that you may not have thought of? How could that experience be different to make your mindset different, to change your behavior and your outcome? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. The words that came to mind for me were authenticity. And I mean, I think it's a universal fear of being perceived in one way or another. So we're always thinking about how am I being perceived? How are people seeing me? Is that what I want? Am I having the impact that I want to have, or is there something that I need to change, right?
Well, and exactly. And I love your word authenticity, because within authenticity comes influence, comes positivity,
Yes.
comes the feeling of being inclusive and helping others be present with you. I must coach on a monthly basis at least 3 or 4 people that say, I don't know how to speak up in a meeting because I'm afraid of how I will sound. I need
Right.
more executive presence. Help me with technique. And I said, well, I'm not going to help you with technique. Let's talk about why you're not speaking up in the first place.
Hmm.
And their mindset is, well, I don't know as much as the people around me, so I don't want to appear stupid. I'm just not going to say anything.
Hmm.
And to your word, I would say, well, what would happen if you thought about it differently? What would happen if you authentically gave your feelings at the time in a way of curiosity, by either restating or asking a question, or that's interesting, I've never seen that before. If it's true, tell me how that influences this project we're working on. I'd love to know. That's an authentic response, as opposed to sitting there waiting for some little tidbit that you might know about so you can share a piece of wisdom that will show that you are not less than.
Yes. Um, I love that and. I think there's a both and here, Eric, which is that sometimes people need language on how to intervene in a group
Yeah.
in a way that is both authentic to them, to their truth, to what they want to say, and language that that comes across as inclusive, curious. I'm not blaming the group. I'm wanting to understand, or I'm curious what's going on here, or we don't seem clear about the problem we're trying to solve, or I'm confused about where we're going. Does anyone else feel that way? So sometimes I feel like people need a little bit of scaffolding with that language.
Totally agree. And yeah, that's exactly right. Sometimes they just don't know. And we as coaches, we have to say, I sense that you want to do that, but you may not know how to form those words. May I give you a couple of examples? And by asking permission or asking to brainstorm a bit, we can come up with them. And then I've often asked, what do you have? How might you say it in a different
Yeah.
way? Or by restating what someone said and then asking, that's really interesting. What do the rest of you think about what she said? You don't have to be knowledgeable to ask that question. You just need to ask the question, and you're seen as a facilitator and engaged and involved in the conversation.
Yes. So um, I often I post these kinds of things, these kind of um, opening phrases that what can, I wonder if we could da da da. I'm noticing that da 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 as sort of language stems, and that um, anybody regard that leadership isn't a title, it's really an activity, and that anybody could ask this kind of question in a meeting, and you're actually showing a leadership skill and just asking because it is about how we are collectively making sense of reality.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Sometimes when I have new leaders who've never led and now they're in a leadership position, they think leading is having all the answers. They think leading is not delegating, taking it all, being just as good as they were as an individual contributor, and feeling this huge weight to be able to impress and to lead through doing the
Right.
job all the time, as opposed to activating and helping others be curious and wondering, like you said, how could we possibly solve this in a different, better way? Um, if I were to say what the number one challenge of new leaders is, it's trying to be too much and not allowing for learning and for measured mistakes to take place on their team so they can learn and progress.
Right. It sounds like you yourself learned at some point that it was your job to help people be curious about what was going on, that it wasn't your job to have all the answers, that you yourself learned these lessons. So I'm just curious, can you say when and where did you learn your sense of agency, that your sense of, oh, I can make a change in the world. I can do this to help other people make change. Where did you come across your sense of agency?
Great question. And where it first happened, I was a terrible first-time manager years ago. I really was. I thought I did all the mistakes and things that I just talked about. I thought, well, I need to be knowledgeable about everything. I need to do it better than the team. I need to have a critical eye and make sure that no one made a mistake. And I think if you ask where did I learn, it's from going through that and then looking back on it and realizing how much better I could have been. Now I had some good counselors and help and mentors along the way that helped me a little bit. And in time, I was able to see that. But in the middle of it, I have compassion for new leaders because I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I mean, I often use with my clients, the Danish philosopher Kierkegaard, who said, we live life going forward, but we only understand it looking backward.
Yes, I
And
love that.
I love that quote because sometimes people say I'm in the middle of a chaos or a mess and I don't know what I'm supposed to learn and everything's falling apart. And life is what I often call wonderfully and awfully messy, and it's supposed to be that way. And so when we're in the middle of it, and when I was in the middle of being a new leader, a new manager, I don't think I recognized it until I was able to move ahead, look back, ask my team, how did that land with you? Well, not so well, Eric. Okay, and then just iteratively get there. I can't say it happened at one time. I just became a great leader. And I'm not sure I am a great leader today. I think I continually learn how to walk the talk, so to speak, and do the things I
Mm.
suggest to others.
Well, the excellent leadership skill that I hear you manifesting is I ask them for feedback.
Yeah, yeah. And
Hmm.
that I've been always able to do without too much of an ego push on my part, just to say, okay, how did this land for you? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? If you were to replay what we just went through, what could I have done, said, behaved in a different way that would have helped you even more? That's been helpful through the years.
So it sounds like you've been open to this for a long time.
I have, yeah, yeah. I just said I would say I wasn't always the best at it,
Hmm.
and so by doing that, by asking a lot of questions and really helping someone else engage with me in the process, the people that reported to me, those that I led in an organizational structure, then that helped a great deal.
Lovely. As you talk about this and you're helping leaders in different ways, you don't need to know all the answers. Your job is to be curious, to ask questions, to ask for feedback.
You know?
So, in what ways does your work heal or make whole people, relationships, systems, teams?
Yeah, good question. I think in summary, just if I were just to give you a quick answer, it's to give people the permission to be exactly who they are and to
Mm,
feel the way they need to feel. I have coached CEOs, C-suite individuals who are high income earners. They're in their 40s, early 50s. They have every material thing they want, but they are incredibly unhappy in life, and their work is not meaningful to them. I often ask, a good telltale sign is what do you feel somatically in your body on Sunday about Monday? And many times they will say, oh, it's a pit in my stomach. I don't want to go in.
mm,
Yes, I just have these few hours with my family or with my loved ones or significant other, and I just don't want to leave them. And so the work that I try to do and help them is just to acknowledge that, to be aware of it, to embrace it, to hold up the mirror and say, this is who I am right now. This is where I am. Is this what I want? And there's always a choice. Some leaders, many of them feel I don't have a choice. I'm locked in to this or that. You can
hmm.
blanks, but the words can't, have to, and must,
Hmm.
ones that honestly 99.9% of the time are not true. I mean, outside of defying gravity, which I think we probably can't just do. Most of the times we say, I must, I can't, I have to. It's not true. We are
Mm,
making a choice. And we
mhm.
don't want to look at the alternatives, or we have locked in on an alternative that we don't necessarily want to go to, but are unwilling to look at every other alternative.
Yeah. I think there's something healing also in what you're doing. You had written somewhere um, that it would be useful to see one's lack of knowledge as a strength.
Hmm.
And particularly when you said earlier, your job is not to be the expert. You don't need to know everything. So can you talk about this healing aspect?
Yeah. Yeah, it goes back to that idea of less than, right? As often we are culturally reinforced to try to be as good as we possibly can, nothing wrong with that, and to know a lot. In the work environment, we're often promoted and seen as a great performer if we know a lot. And if we say to ourselves, if I admit that I don't know, then I might not be promoted, recognized, I might not be seen as who I want to be. So we're the fear is being seen as less than I want to be. Ironically, often when we admit that we don't have all the answers and we look to others to help us put it together, and we have this synergy among us, we actually not only strengthen ourselves and just start being comfortable in our own shoes, we start helping the organization build better because we're not tacitly telling them, because I have the answer, you don't. When I say, I don't have all the answers, let's work on this together, we'll come up with some amazing things. Now, if the house is burning down, okay, everybody get out. We know what we need to do, and I may be more directed. But if it's just us creating together for the best possible alternative, I would be limiting not only who I am, but who you are by saying I know the answers. And so,
Mhm.
ironically, by saying I don't know all the answers, I know some things. Team, let's do this together. Let's think about how we might do it even better than I thought about it. Then we begin to realize how our potential, but also we we get some healing in ourselves by not having to pretend what we're not.
Oh,
Any,
lovely.
and I just believe anytime our outward behavior contradicts with what our internal sort of spirit or mindset is telling us, we're hurting ourselves.
Yeah. I love that healing ourselves. How did you phrase that?
Oh, can I do it again? We are healing ourselves when we are allowing ourselves to be true to what is really going on inside of us, as opposed to
Yes.
putting a facade out saying, I know
Yes.
more than I think I know.
Yes. Or, I mean, the word that came to mind for me was gaslighting.
Yes, that's
When we stop gaslighting other people and acknowledge that, I don't know the answer either, let's see if we can collectively figure this out.
yeah. Some leaders feel that is not leadership. Some feel that unless they are very directed and they're the ones who come up with the answer, then they are not earning their keep. Um, I would say that research and just common sense would tell me otherwise.
Yeah. What do you say to someone to a leader who says that to you?
Well, I would ask them, what evidence do you have that others can't help you make the decision better?
Mm,
How have you utilized others in the past to help you make decisions? And if not, would you like to experiment on that to get
yeah.
a better outcome?
I might be curious if they had ever made any mistakes.
Yeah, I had one leader one time I was coaching who told me that he'd done the presentation. I was in the room, this is years ago, and I had the class surveys. I took to him. I said, I have the surveys on how they feel you did in this presentation. He was a senior vice president. He said, I don't need to see them. I know I'm a 10. I said, really? He said, yep, I don't need to see them. And I don't need to tell you the rest of the story. 3 months later, he was let go. There were other things that came out of that.
Wow.
Um, the
Hmm.
signs were there early on.
Uh-huh. So interesting. So again, it gets where the circle here is about getting feedback.
I think so. Yeah, and being courage. Courage can be shown in many ways. Sometimes it's being willing to stand up in the middle of the room and hold your opinion, or sometimes it's be willing to say in the midst of people not doing well by other people that that's not okay, and to let that voice go out there. Sometimes it's being willing to say you don't know the answers and to let others see who you are genuinely and to allow them to help you.
Hmm. You know, it occurs to me, Eric, I was thinking about the polarity of relationship and knowledge.
Hmm.
And and I'm not sure if that's the right polarity, but just as you were speaking, I thought to myself, huh, well, if the leader understood that it is through building relationships that we are better able to solve problems, then you would focus on building a relationship with your team as opposed to being the person who has all the answers. What do you think about that piece?
Well, I agree. And everyone's different. I mean, we know that culture, and you and I had this conversation too, cultures are different. Some cultures are relationship based in terms of trust, some are behavior based in terms of trust. And so what's important to me is to find out how that person is trust built. Is it based on how well we know each other in our relationship and how well we know about our backgrounds and our families? Very much an Eastern kind of thinking. Or is it based on I do what I said I would do, and you can always trust me to follow through and get things done, regardless of who I am and who my background was. And so I would say it sometimes depends on who you're working with. That
Hmm.
idea of trust is built on a different foundation depending on the culture and sometimes depending on the company.
Yes. Wonderful. I mean, you and I talked about cross-cultural communication and the way different cultures approach these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And you know this and far better than I do, I'm sure. When someone does go from one culture into another and then tries to lead with the same cultural principles that they had or aspects or traits they had in their culture, it can be everything from not working to a disaster. and,
Right.
and so some of my coaching is in that as well to help them prepare for that. But yes, it is dependent on the culture sometimes.
Would it be fair to ask you for one example where you, because I know that you lived in different parts of Asia, Hong Kong, Japan. Would it be fair to ask you of one example where you noticed that you weren't going to be able to lead in the way that you showed up because of the cultural difference?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yes, there are a couple, maybe more that I can think of, but let me give you one. Um, Lives for some time in Japan, and Japanese are very consensus building. So instead of strong manager type who will say, we're going to do it this way and everybody follows in, um, generally they won't move forward unless there is complete consensus
Yes.
around something. And so I know early on when I was trying to move a team to do something, and I thought I had locked down the logic and all of the attributes that would help them make that decision, I was frustrated that the decision wasn't being made. And as I worked with them and got to understand it, it wasn't that I didn't have a good case. It was that everyone there had to be absolutely on the same page before moving forward. Another great example. This isn't mine, but I have a good friend who went and spoke to some 15-year-olds, 14, 15-year-olds in a maybe a junior high class, and as a visitor from the U.S. and asked them, "What's your favorite color?" And now, if that question was asked in a class in the United States or maybe in Europe, there'd be hands going up: blue, red, green, maroon. In that class, they all came together in the middle of the room and talked about it. And then they all went back to their seats. And one girl stood up and said, "Our favorite color is yellow." So, not right or wrong, it's just a different way of thinking about how you want to be individual or how you want to stand out in a group or have consensus and collective.
Those are brilliant examples. You know the story of you got to have W-A.
Oh, do I? Help refresh me on this.
Oh, well, this is Japanese, which is exactly what you were saying, which is that it is about the relationship base, the way of coming together, the
Oh, the
consensus.
wing. Okay, I
It's
understand it
like
now.
it's like the baseball team, that they're not there to showcase their individual strengths, but rather the team coming
Correct. Yeah.
together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You're absolutely right. And to stand out is seen as rude and also to be self-serving.
Yes, yes. Fascinating, isn't it?
It is fascinating, and different cultures all have different nuances that just fascinate me, and also create some very interesting interplay between cultures as I work with people going back and forth between them.
Wonderful. Well, you've given some wonderful examples of your expertise in executive coaching, team coaching, because you got the thing about the team coming together and making sense of things and making decisions, and cross-cultural coaching. You've demonstrated all of those just in this short conversation.
It's been delightful. It's been fun.
Thank you so much, Eric. If people wanted to find out more about you, where would they look?
Yeah, we have a website which is insightforleadership.com, and we're there. And if they would like to investigate more or talk more, maybe have a chemistry call, happy to do that. But or just talk in general, happy just to work with coaches or others who are pursuing the same line. Always love to connect, and certainly glad that you did as well. This has been enlightening for me and helpful for me as well.
This has been great fun. Thank you. I'm just going to turn off the recording.
Okay.